This weekend,
Yes.
I went and saw Herb Albert and the Tijuana Brass. Did I tell you that?
Oh.
Oh my God. He was so fantastic. He's 90 years old.
Jeepers.
And he played his trumpet a bunch of times. And he danced seated on a chair. He did chair dancing with his legs. And it was evidence of the youth that you can maintain when you do things you love.
Yeah, and that working on the breath.
And working on the breath.
Capacity to blow that horn.
Yeah.
Amazing.
Yeah, it
wonder
really
if
was amazing.
Horn players have less anxiety or more anxiety than other people.
They gotta have, I would think they would have less anxiety just because they know how to take a deep breath.
But then they're blowing so forcefully out for so long. Like
Core.
over exhaling. I don't know yet. So it's not over for their task, but like, then I wonder if that habit carries over. I don't know. Musicians, write in.
Yeah, tell us.
Let us
tell
know.
us. But I'm thinking if you're a musician, you're probably pretty cool. Like,
You're too cool to write in?
I don't think of musicians as being highly anxious people. Maybe accountants.
Maybe more depressive than.
No, I think they feel good. I think they feel connected. My idea of a musician.
Well, because I'm thinking like famous rock stars that commit suicide.
Yeah, that's true.
Yeah.
That's true. No matter what our instrument is, we're still looking for connection and ease. And some sort of stability and ease in the mind, body, and spirit, whether our instrument is a trumpet or our body.
Love it.
Love it.
Jane, you're so good.
I am Jane, and I'm here with
Sarah, that's me.
and we're yoga posers. So if you're watching this, you can see the picture of Whipped Cream, the album, which is shaving cream. He told us that.
It really.
Yeah, he said it was shaving cream. And she was 6 months pregnant. Or 6 weeks. I don't really know. But 6 weeks doesn't seem like much.
Six something.
6 something.
Right. So
That's a lot of whipped cream.
we're going to say 6 months.
I'm going to say 6 months too because.
It's a better story.
All right. So today we're taking on plank pose.
And we've avoided it assiduously.
And so yesterday we were practicing it and it's hard.
Yeah, I think the chaturanga part is hard. I think plank is fine, right? And it's just chaturanga, and just sustaining chaturanga and holding it, refining it.
Okay, well, plank pose, I'm going to argue plank pose is hard in and of itself. As a matter of fact, that's one of the number one complaints about it.
It's hard.
It's hard. And the formal name is Chaturanga Dandasana. And chatur means four.
Anga means limb.
Danda, stick, staff. And asana is just a seat pose.
Right. It's going back to that staff pose, Dandasana, we mentioned with one of our other episodes.
Yeah. Yeah.
Down dog.
Down dog. Yeah. Okay. So this is a pose where you're basically doing Tadasana on your hands and feet. And I have been talking to Sarah about doing a whole episode on Tadasana, and she really...
I nixed it.
She's nixing it. But now I get to talk about it because it's really cool. So this is a pose that causes a lot of discomfort for a lot of people in the wrists, in the shoulders. The core is unable to sustain them in the stick pose element, so they end up dumping into the low back. And it creates a lot of mental chatter because it's hard. We were looking at some of the indications for it, and it's good for balancing kapha. So if you're really depressed and you're really lethargic, this is a good go-to pose because it's all about fire and heat and really
What a
waking
leap.
up.
You're a couch potato? Try plank. That's
Try
the
plank.
first thing you should do.
Actually,
I was gonna say
we
maybe
know that's
cat
not
cow.
true. Yeah, that's not true. And yeah, because the number one rule of yoga therapy is meet yourself where you're at. And if you're sitting on the couch and depressed, you're not at plank yet. But
No.
it is a good counter pose for depression.
Really? Tell me more.
It's a counter pose for depression because it's a kapha balancing pose, and an imbalance in kapha is depressive state. And it does create a lot of heat. It's going to get your metabolism moving if you hold it for any sustained period of time. So it's going to wake up the body and the tissue. But if you suck at it, it could add to your depression.
Well, my therapist once said to me, well, do you prefer to be sad or angry? And so that's a very useful question. I'd much rather be angry than depressed or than sad.
Well, I might rather be angry, but I don't really know how to do it. I go straight to sad.
Oh, so you'd rather be...
It'd be nice to be angry, but I don't really know how to manage anger. I don't know how to access it. If I access anger, it always ends up turning in on myself. This is a longer conversation for me and my therapist, but it's just a reminder that how we work with these emotions in our system varies.
And what kind of practice you're drawn to. So that, you full of pitta, that fiery, you love that hot yoga practice. You love that more aggressive power yoga.
You should stay away from them. Really?
No, I know that's what they
that's
say.
What you want. That's what you want.
Yeah. I mean, I feed the beast and then every once in a while I'll pop into a restorative class and have your mind blown.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. So plank pose. The complaints we said are this is hard. I'm pissed off about it because it's hard. And what else are
just the feeling of the core is not able to do it. I think that the arms take over and people don't feel that lightness and that lifting quality that happens when we engage the core properly. So if we were to break down the pose, it's a neutral spine pose. It's a spinal extension pose, right? I'm sure people were listening to Downward Dog and they were like, it's not a forward fold. It's a neutral axial extension pose. Fine, whatever. This is an axial extension pose. That's our category. And then the benefits. We talked about lifting you up from the kapha. It's just going to build the upper body strength necessary to do so many things in life. It's going to build some isometric core strength.
Really good core strength.
It's a great position that as you build your capacity to hold, that you can work a lot of postural issues in it.
Yeah, it actually works everything. I think it's a pose that really works everything fully if you're doing it well. And that's really the issue, is doing it well. So my favorite way to do plank pose is laying down on my back. And it took me a long time to do it on my back. And then when I did it, I was like, oh shit, this is why it's a core pose. Because when I'm bearing my weight, it's hard for me to knit my ribs in. It's hard for me to draw the low belly in and up. I want the entire front body, from the quads to the low belly, the lower abdominals, the ribs, even the heads of the shoulders. I want them broad, the neck even. I want everything lifting up to support my spine. It's like I have a hydraulic lift, which is my front body that's moving up to support my spine as I try to lower down. So when I'm lowering down, it's through this energy of lifting up, right? And then I'm moving the hardware, I'm bending the elbows, I'm pulling back, and then that is what's moving me towards the earth, but the whole front body is lifting up to support me. That's what I'm aiming for in my practice. What it often feels like to me is that I'm start from plank, and then I imagine a net that fishermen might grab fish in, everything feels like it's sinking down. It's just drawing me down. Gravity.
Full of fish.
Yeah.
The body's full of fish.
But gravity is drawing me down, right? Gravity. And that's the challenge here, is we are working with and against gravity.
Yeah, this is an anti-gravity pose.
Totally.
For sure. And the core is a very powerful anti-gravity mechanism. So if you're starting then on the back.
Oh, yeah. So I'm on my back.
Yeah.
And then what I want to do is basically find a straight spine, like we were talking about. So I'll typically bend my knees to start, and I bring my legs together. And then now that we have learned all the benefit of finding the pelvic tilt with the feet, I'm going to do that. So I'm going to find a neutral pelvis by isometrically pressing down and forward with my feet, pressing down, pulling back with my feet, and finding where's neutral. And then I try to zip up the low belly in and up. I've recently been doing this thing that I love, where I take a mostly deflated big myofascial ball, like the Coregeous ball, and I bring that. Oh, there it is. There it is. There it is. I love
it's right here next to us.
Yeah. And
there's balls everywhere.
And so what's really fun is I'll put that underneath my pelvis, sacrum area. And then I try to, from the front body, I try to squish it flat without using my butt, without tipping my pelvis one way or the other. I just try to flatten that. And it teaches me what it feels like in my body to take the front of the pelvic girdle, the front of the pelvic bowl, and then I'm using the musculature in the front of my low belly to stabilize the back of the pelvis. Mm-hmm. So it's cool. And that's really helpful, because that's also what I want to be doing, is I want that to be lifting up. And for a lot of us, it takes some practice to get that kind of intimacy and relationship and awareness with our low belly.
What I like about your description is it ties into what the abdominals actually do. So all of the abdominals compress the abdominal contents.
Yeah.
So we think of the digestive system, the organs. If you imagine all of that compressed, that's a nice way to feel the core activate. It feels broader and more uniform, but also contained from the pelvic floor. It feels more uniform and not just a
Gripping.
Not just a grip, a clench, not just navel to spine. It's a little broader. It's a bigger area than that. And I feel that when we connect it to the exhale, it becomes especially effective because the abdominals, their job is to activate on an exhale. So using your breath in this, do you have a name for this? On your back, plank?
It's called plank on my back.
Plank on your back with the arms up to the ceiling.
Yeah.
Right. And then, so maybe adding a shushing or a blowing out birthday candles breath
That was really helpful.
to get that abdominal contents being pressurized or compressed.
Supported. And I don't wear Spanx often because I can't figure out where to put the waistband really, because I don't want it under my boobs. I don't want it in my waist. Something's going to roll over. Wanda Sykes does a really good Johnny Carson thing on Spanx where she names her belly Wanda and it is escaping the Spanx during a show. It's fantastic. Anyway, but you want that sense of sort of containment and support. But anyway, so I'm on my back. I find the neutral pelvis. I get the core to contain me, to support me, to hug into the structure. And then with my legs together, I flex my feet and I work to extend my legs straight, moving slowly enough so that I can keep my pelvis neutral, right? There's going to come a point in time where your pelvis is going to want to move in order to accommodate the extension of the legs. And so you just keep going. And I love that cue you've used, Sarah, where it's like the as is bones, the bony part of the pelvis in the front and the pubic bone, you want them level. So you can put your hands, one on the pubic bone. I like to do like almost a diamond. The base of the palms is on the as is bones, fingers on the pubic bone. And then I keep that level as I extend my legs long.
Right, because the psoas has to release. And that's where I think that's the rub in this plank pose is the psoas tends to dominate. So you'll see the belly hang, the low back overarches, the butt sticks up in the air.
Yeah.
And so to starting non-weight bearing on your back, as you're saying, and slowly sliding out with that exhale, tracking those hip points. As soon as those hip points moves towards your feet, you have to pause, reintegrate, wait for your next exhale, make it a more forceful shushing or blowing out of the candles to then try to coax that psoas into releasing. Rectus abdominis, the six-pack muscle from the pubic bone to the base of your sternum, that muscle gets too long in this shape in plank. So if we zip up, imagine you're wearing skinny jeans from last year or 2 seasons ago, zip up the pubic bone towards the navel, engage rectus abdominis to reduce overarching in the low back, which I know it's a superficial muscle, but it's still an important one.
Yeah.
Now, if we take your ASIS and we tie the drawstring of a sweatpants, if we narrow those hip points towards each other, then that deepest layer of the transverse abdominis starts to engage. Now, if we blow out candles, then you get those oblique muscles, the external oblique muscles that wrap and corset around the rib cage to knit in. Those are the actions I would emphasize on your back. How do we get all these layers to work? And since we want to avoid rib flare, we're not going to do a crunch and activate those internal obliques. We're going to just let those go. We're going to emphasize external obliques, rectus abdominis, and transverse abdominis.
Yeah. And that's so interesting too, because in one of our episodes, we talk about the high lunge. When the psoas is short, it makes things really difficult. And it's short for many of us just because of the way we live our life. So, my legs are long. My pelvis is neutral. I'm on my back. I want my inner thighs rotating internally. Right? I do not want my legs externally rotating. First of all, when my legs rotate,
just want your legs neutral. So kneecaps to the ceiling for most people.
Kneecaps to the ceiling.
So
I want my inner thighs. I want my inner thighs going to the floor.
She really likes this upper inner thighs releasing back. 90% of people in plank don't need to release their upper inner thighs back in this pose. That's what's already happening. Almost everybody's psoas muscles are going to be so stiff that they're going to present with the belly hanging, too much arch in the low back.
Okay.
and the butt sticking up.
Okay, well, I'm going to play with this. Sadly, my vinyasa class today will be getting a lot of planks.
Oh, no.
They're going to be excited. But it was part of, when I think of it, it's part of the, how can I get the front body to lift up? So I guess it's just the quads pressing the femur bone up. Like, I just want everything in the front body to help move away from gravity.
I mean, it's a groin release to unlock the pelvis to facilitate an anterior tilt or a hip hinge. That cue is for that. And I feel like this is more of a hip extension pose. It's neutral. I get it. But because people tend to be in too much of an anterior tilt in this pose, meaning the top of the pelvis, if you're
tipping towards the earth.
Right. If you're in that full plank with weight bearing on your arms, then your ASIS is diving towards the floor and towards your toes. We want to activate some of those opposite actions.
Okay.
So it's not a cue personally that I would toss into the mix.
Okay. I'm going to have to spend some time in my body and see if that's true for me. So cool. And then I reach my arms up to the ceiling with my palms flexed. Because, and this is hard for me, because what you're going to find is people will have limitations in their ability to flex their palms, which when they're bearing weight is going to come into the mix, right? So if you can do a 90-degree angle with your wrist,
which is past anatomically neutral. So it's not functional.
To get the elbows where you want them when you come down to Chaturanga.
If you choose to do that.
Okay. So then when I'm on my back, I'm like, ooh, my plank feels fantastic on my back. It's a lot of work. And then I try to come to Chaturanga by pulling my arms down. So I keep the upper arms just outside the ribs. The upper arms and the forearms are a 90-degree angle. I'm bringing them down to a 90-degree angle. I'm going to pause right before the upper arm hits the ground because I want to keep my elbows at the same height as my shoulder heads, which I want broad and neutral, which means they're in line with the ribs. They're not forward. They're not back in a back bend. And then my wrists are flexed. That's so hard.
This is a brilliant place to teach the Chaturanga action of the arms and to help track that, to go and touch the student and lift that shoulder head or adjust the elbow to shoulder height, because that's very hard to parse out and actually feel what's happening.
And this is also another place where you can give them, you can just press onto their palms to give them that sense. And it's like, shit, this is a hard pose.
Yeah. And it really emphasizes the action of the triceps, which is such an important muscle at the back of your upper arm that has to get strong for this pose.
Well, it shows you that for me to get to that 90-degree angle with my arm, my hand has to pull back or my torso has to go forward in space.
Or both.
Right? Yeah, or both. So there's movement. It's not like you're in plank and you bend the elbows and come straight down. Right.
Right. Because once people try that bearing weight and gravity, so now their hands are on the floor, they just drop the shoulders. They just catastrophically plummet towards the floor.
Yeah. Yeah.
And it is a catastrophe.
Chaturanga is really easy to do in a way that may be harmful.
Right. It's almost the only way to do it. If you're going to, is you have to do it improperly because it would kick your ass. And you don't have time. You're 6 beats behind the rest of the flow class.
Right. If you're going really slow down and keeping your shoulders aligned.
If you're actually working the alignment, it's exhausting.
Yeah.
So some people just have the ligamentous structure to support that repetitive motion over and over again of doing it improperly for years. And I've seen like really skilled teachers who do an Ashtanga practice, a practice I greatly respect and I love, and their form is terrible, but they can do amazing poses. So more power to you. But a lot of us will just say, it's trashed my shoulders. My rotator cuff is shot. How do I do these poses in a sustainable way? That's what we're interested in, because therapeutically as yoga therapists, I'm not having anyone do Chaturanga. Nobody, zero, literally zero. Unless they're a more advanced practitioner and they come and they're like, I really need help with my Chaturanga. Well, they can't even do plank.
Right.
So again, it's coming back to just getting plank really solid and good.
Yeah.
Which might bring us to the shoulders, because I feel like
we are at the shoulders.
Anyone thinks of shoulders in yoga, they only think of two things: squeeze your shoulder blades together and get your shoulders away from your ears. And there's so many more things that you need to be able to do with your shoulders than just squeeze your shoulder blades together and depress the shoulder blades.
And we haven't even talked about, do you squeeze the top or the bottom or the side?
Right. I mean,
or
but
like,
in
do
this,
you spread your collarbones? I always want to spread my collarbones.
Well, but then to what? To neutral. So in neutral Tadasana, which plank is a version of Tadasana, the collarbones are just as wide as the upper back. So the front body and the back body are equal. So if we broaden the collarbones to the point of the shoulder blades squeezing together, and I'm talking about being at the top of the plank.
Well, that makes sense.
Not as you lower down. Of course, the shoulder blades come together as you lower down into Chaturanga or to the floor. But holding plank for me is a push up. So to me, most everybody has to push up. They have to lift between the shoulder blades. The serratus anterior, the muscle that helps keep the scapula close to the rib cage, when that muscle, which is on the underside of the scapula and attaches into the ribs and ding, 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 attaches to the external obliques. Oh my God, amazing. Functionally, they work together. When that muscle is weak, the upper back drops. That person, the more they broaden their collarbones or squeeze their shoulder blades together, the worse their plank gets.
I got it. So, it's so interesting because when we were doing our poses yesterday, we both had that. Both of us were like in plank, and the other person was like, lift up your upper back.
Because we're yoga teachers.
Lift up. And I was
we're yoga teachers.
I was like, what are you talking about? What are you talking about? But then I saw in your body, and you're exactly right. And so the idea of finding balance and not taking the front body wider than the back body, not taking the back body wider than the front body, and where the shoulders are in space is going to give you information as to whether or not you're doing that. If the head of the shoulders are in line with the center of the ribs, you're probably pretty good, right?
Right. And so it comes down to body type, because most yoga teachers, like the vast majority, are pretty flat spined, because all we've done is lengthen the hell out of our spine, and we've reduced our spinal curves.
Which I have to say has not helped me as a menopausal woman not shrink little bit.
It's nice to have those spinal curves. Many yoga teachers tend to have really flat backs. So show your back.
I don't think my back is flat.
Her back is flat.
Okay.
It's totally flat as a pancake.
Okay.
So is mine. But the other people have that structural kyphosis. So the structural, but again, like most cues are for really stiff students.
Okay.
So for sure, when you've got someone with the kyphosis, they do their plank. They're at the top of the plank, and they've got a little hill or a big hill in between their head of their arm bone. They need to broaden their collars. They need to squeeze their shoulder blades to get to neutral.
Right.
So every cue is not for every body. And you can just scan your class and say like, okay, everybody here has a flat back. I'm in a level 2, level 3 vinyasa class. Right. I'm just going to stop saying squeeze your shoulder blades together. Yeah. I'm going to say lift up between the shoulder blades and hold this plank and build some of that serratus strength.
When we're on the back, we're doing plank on the back, and your arms are up, you can say, breathe in between your shoulder blades and see if you can connect to the mat with your back body, your thoracic spine.
Yeah, and I love how these core actions always bring us back to the breath. And this pose is such a good opportunity to breathe into places that you may not habitually be used to breathing in. The person with kyphosis can breathe into their upper back, and it's terrifying because every time they inhale, they're not inhaling into their chest. They're not inhaling into their side ribs. They're inhaling into their belly and their upper back, which exacerbates and reinforces their postural tendency. And so the flat-backed people, we really need to inflate that upper back. Yeah. And guess what? There's lungs there. You're supposed to. There's ribs there. It's not like woo-woo. It's not energetic. It's literal concrete reality.
There's nothing wrong with energetics.
There's not, but I feel like some things people are like, especially students, because you're like, breathe. And people are like, oh, well, that's just because I should try to relax. No. Breathe because it's a process that involves muscles and has a consequence for your core.
Yeah. Obviously, it seems like there's a couple things which will come through in every chapter, core and breath. There's a great book out by James Nesser called Breathe. And it's pretty fun because it reminds me.
Maybe it's just breath.
Is it breath? It could be breath. Look it up. I have it right back behind me. So you just have to look at the yellow book. No, it's.
Why would I look when I could just look at my phone?
It's breath. It's breath. So anyway, but the thing that's fun about it, it's like Fast Food Nation where the guy ate McDonald's forever and then tested his body. This is a guy who does mouth breathing for a really long time and tests his body, and his body is like suboptimal. It is not functioning well.
It's dangerous.
I know.
He plugged his nose. I mean, it was terrifying to see the rapid
the decline of his health.
The incidence of apneas occurring at night.
It's really interesting because the breath is something that no one ever teaches us, and it's something that is amazingly therapeutic and helpful and full.
And you're definitely doing it wrong.
Yeah.
100%, because I've been learning about breath for 20, 30 years. I'm still working on my breath.
I know.
It is a practice because you will have a default pattern.
Right.
You'll have an inherited pattern. You'll be a breath holder. You'll be an over exhaler. You'll be an over inhaler.
Yeah.
You'll be breathing into certain parts of your body and not able to breathe anywhere else. And you might be too hyper focused on the breath.
You could become obsessive.
Now you need to stop worrying about your breath. And that's your practice.
I love this. I love that. That's such a good thought, because as we're talking, there seems to be evidence that we could become obsessive about anything.
Right. And then just lying in bed listening to your husband mouth breathe. And
Oh
you're
my
like-
God.
And not and just
Oh my God.
and not saying anything about it. You
That's
just,
the hardest
you know,
part.
you gotta let it go. It's their journey, whether
Yeah.
not they choose to engage in health. You just lead by example.
I'm just going to sit here and breathe through my nose. Just look at
You know what? My husband is a rock of stability and calm.
I know.
Stay in your lane,
Stay in your
Sarah.
lane.
Stay in your lane. Manage your own shit. Don't manage your partner's stuff.
Oh
That's
my God.
really bad for relationships.
Yeah. So we could have a huge conversation, but that would have to get cut. But yeah, that mouth breathing makes me insane.
Right. We should really get back to talking about plank. It's so funny how we can avoid talking about plank
Yeah,
because
because no one wants to do it.
no one wants to. But
fucking
plank
pose.
really got trendy for a bit. I think it's falling. Because what are you going to do when you're a content generator, which we're not? We also avoid generating content too. But
part
if you're a
of the
content generator, at a certain point, you're like, now I got to say planks are bullshit because I've been doing them for so long now. We stopped doing crunches because the idea was for a long time to engage the core, you need to shorten the core. And while that's beneficial for people who are very hyperlordotic, yes, we want to relatively shorten the core. We do want a long, strong core within finding neutral for you. When people think of core, they always think of a sit-up, a crunch. And so
Bad. I don't like them. That's a different episode.
right. And again, for a narrow percentage of people, it's a very helpful exercise, but hip flexors tend to get pretty dominant in that.
some pelvis.
Yeah, pelvic floor issues, too much intra-abdominal pressure. Crunch favors the internal obliques, which widen that rib flare even more. But that can be good for people who really have too tight and narrow of a rib cage.
Okay.
So again, everything
Forearm.
has its place. But then plank came into favor because of this idea of a long, strong core.
It's also functional. If we can master plank, as we age, our ability to sustain this core that is supportive, that is 360, three-dimensional, everything, those are the things that help us maintain balance. We want our core to be integrated so the limbs can move freely. Having the core organized and optimized is such good service to us.
Let's get back to like really concrete things with plank, because if we oversell the core on everything, we're assuming no one likes it. It's fine. You don't have to like the core. It is important. Fine. It's like brushing your teeth. It's like keeping a clean house. It's like a hassle that we have to do. The core.
I don't think you can. I don't think you can oversell the
She
core.
was so stunned.
I don't think you can oversell the core.
How do you feel about cleaning your house?
I don't think the core is like cleaning my house.
Oh, it's like getting on your hands and knees and cleaning the floor. Let's be real.
I'm going to have to think about this.
When you're a third of the way into cleaning, you get in a groove. The music's right. And then
Yeah.
you're like, I'm into this. I like it. It
Yeah.
feels, look how beautiful. Like everything looks so nice. It's calming.
Yeah.
Right. You got to find the right way to get into it. But okay.
Okay.
So preparatory pose, let's get to weight bearing.
So we're going to hands and knees. Okay. Take it away.
Okay. So for on hands and knees, and you could be on forearms if the wrists are sensitive, do something very simple called a scapular slide. So it's when the arms stay the same length and then you move your rib cage up and down. And this is something really tricky for people to figure out how to do. So you could always sit them down, reach your arms straight out in front of you about shoulder height, reach your arms away from you, pull your arms back.
Yeah.
And so then they're starting to feel the shoulder blade slide on the back.
Yeah,
The shoulder blade area.
Protract and retract the shoulders.
Correct. This is a dead zone for people. The fewest nerve endings are between the shoulder blades. So this is why we have to literally touch students' upper back with their permission and reveal to them through the touch of our hand to show, okay, your shoulder blades are narrowing. Now they're widening, and they can widen so much that they wrap around to the sides of the rib cage. Super important for plank and down dog when the arms eventually get overhead. So now if they were to keep their arms out in front of them, instead of moving your arms back and forth, press your rib cage forward, slouch a little, bring the rib cage back. Now try that on the ground. Arms stay straight. They don't bend and straighten at the elbow, and then just lift and lower. This can be very, very tricky for students. A hand right between the shoulder blades. Say push up into my hand.
Yeah, that's helpful.
For those people who do have that dip, say lift up into my hand, push right here, inhale, push my hand away with your breath. That gets people to lift there. The kyphotic person, you're saying let go, soften, or squeeze between the shoulder blades to get your ribs to sink towards the floor.
If any did Anusara yoga, this was big with John Friend. The melting the heart
Soften
and then,
the heart.
soften the heart and all those kinds of cueing.
They did that to get the head of the arm bone back, which is very useful.
Right.
Right. But then it would always be countered with a balancing cues. We can soften the heart, but then engage through the core. And then
Right.
that we
Meet
always
in the middle.
meet in the middle and come back to neutral.
Yeah.
Okay. So then now we've done that scapular slide. Then they can do it in a knee plank. So you're
Yeah.
in plank. So go ahead and go to plank and then set your knees down on the floor. Much harder to do the pose correctly here. To do it correctly, much easier in terms of exertion, holding the pose, and mentally easier to sustain, but way harder to get your core to actually work properly with your knees down. But nonetheless, you can still do your scapular slide there.
And can we just talk a second? Because your knees are down, and I like to make sure I'm pressing into the shins, but I'm still looking for a straight line from the back of my knees to the back of the skull. Because a lot of times people stick their butt up.
Press down. What does that do? Does that help you feel more sensation in your core? Great. But zipping up, narrow the hip points, exhale, really tying it to the breath. Because A, we want people to breathe. B, it gets the right muscles to work. And we want this connection in their brain. Then they can try it in the full plank.
There's one other iteration. You can take one leg back and keep one knee down. That's the step between both legs back. And then
Right.
the other thing too, when you do one leg back at a time, is it really is a revealing of asymmetries. I always like to see those.
When you're doing that scapular slide, usually the core drops out completely because people are focused on the shoulder.
Yeah.
It's really just to teach how the scapula can move across the ribs, and then say in that push up, we want those shoulder blades wide. We don't want that dip between the shoulder blades.
Okay. And so then we take both feet back, and now we're in plank.
Now we're in plank.
Yeah,
And then I love to alternate between plank and downward dog.
I do too.
Because especially for the very flexible flat upper back type, if you get them to broaden in plank, when you transition to downward dog, it's just a hip hinge. The spine is staying the same. You are not,
It's staff pose.
you are not increasing the arch anywhere. You're not increasing rounding anywhere. You're just hinging at the hip. And then those scapula have to continue to move into upward rotation. So they might even widen more. So again, getting people out of this idea that they have to always squeeze the shoulder blades together and always push the shoulders away from their ears. Not helpful for that transition to down dog.
So the other thing that's nice about this is when you're transitioning from down dog to plank, you are becoming familiar with the proper stance for your body. In a perfect world, when we come to plank, wrists are under the shoulders, maybe slightly in front, and then send your hips up to the sky, you're in down dog. That should be where your hands and feet go theoretically in the rest of your standing poses. So you would take your right leg up and then bring it forward to where your foot is and the back foot's not moving, right? That's your stance. And then we're stretching long. You reach the crown of the head and the heels away from each other. Another complication that often happens in this pose is people will often let their head drop, and that creates more difficulty in accessing the core.
I think the bowing of the head in is an instinctual response because that deep core continues up through the neck flexors. I think even deliberately looking back towards your navel is a way to help people start to lift their core. It's certainly not the final form. And what they'll find is as they try to lift their head, they lose some of the power of the core. They feel like, oh gosh, the pose suddenly got harder. That's when you want to reinforce the breath cue.
Yeah. So what do you do
Aim
when
there.
people, when their wrists, like they have carpal tunnel stuff, do you have them be on blocks? Do you have them be on fists? Do you have them, what do you do?
I will look at how their shoulder functions and how well they can control their scapula, and that's where the problem is, and that's why their wrists hurt. So it's like the wrists just are the most downstream portion of misalignments further up. A core that doesn't engage, a shoulder blade that doesn't know how to move properly, a stuck collarbone.
Postural issues.
That's how they posturally arrange themselves, and then how they tend to move in the pose. And so it all dumps in the wrist. And then you have people who throughout their day have their wrists in extension way too much. So anyone at a keyboard or using a mouse, or cyclists even who tend to extend their wrists will have a lot of wrist sensitivity. So having them do the pose with those push-up things, certainly doing a lot on the forearms, and just improving the breath, improving the core. And you're not going to improve the wrists by holding plank pose and building up your endurance, suffering through that wrist pain. Any joint pain is a signal in the body that, hey, you're compressing this joint too much or stressing the joint in some other way.
Right. Okay. I sometimes have them do a fist with the fist facing inward. So they're using the base of the knuckles and their wrists are nice and straight. That can help. It's recommended often that they work with blocks. I'm not a huge fan of that. I understand why it offers relief, but then also it distorts.
It's how they hold the hand on the blocks. If they could get their thumbs to drop down the inner edge of the block and have the index fingers parallel, that can take a lot of strain off.
It moves them away from the pinky edge of the hand.
It moves them away from the pinky edge of the hand. Check out our downward dog episode about the wrists.
The forearm plank is also a really lovely way to learn plank that takes any pressure off the wrists. From Sphinx pose, I'll do a little cat-cow, pulling the whole upper body away from the ground and then pressing into my forearms to come up. And then I try to find neutral in my spine. I guess I'm going to now try to lift up in between my shoulder blades, reach the crown of the head and the heels away from each other and let the front body stay up. I move my pelvis back to neutral. I move my shoulders to neutral. And the core is on fire. And then just come one arm at a time, come up to core plank. It teaches me what I'm trying to feel in my body, which is hard for me to access straight when I'm bearing all that weight.
Yeah, I'm really curious if listeners have any insights into populations that prefer a straight arm to a forearm. I love a forearm. I have a really flat upper back. You like a forearm plank. You have a really flat upper back. And when I have really kyphotic people on their forearms, it tends to accentuate the kyphosis and they do better with a straight arm. And often they prefer a straight arm if their wrists aren't too bad. So I'm wondering if other people have found correlations between body type and preferences, but this is always a steady option that you can offer people.
Yeah. And I think people feel like forearm plank is the beginner. It's like the junior. When you're lowering down through Chaturanga, you want your belly and your pelvis to touch last.
And again, that's the cue, not the final shape. It's all lowering simultaneously, but the cue is belly button touches last, because that's the fastest thing to drop. And people usually kind of do a cobra / kind of up dog shape as they lower to the floor, because that's much easier, takes most of the work out of the arms and just lets the low back overarch on the way down.
Okay. Well, actually, let's keep talking about this. So we've got plank, and then plank is typically on your way to Chaturanga. So I think we can talk about that movement and how it could serve us. I think we could probably take Chaturanga as a separate
episode.
No,
we got to
no,
put it
okay,
here.
we're going to do it. We're going to do it.
It's just too much.
I don't even want to get into it because
the cue is lower halfway down to Chaturanga.
Yeah.
You taught it on your back, teaching that arm motion, getting all of that in place first is great. And then you can set up with blocks to train Chaturanga so that your weight is partially supported by a block at the lowest ribs and then a block in between the hip points. So we've got the block at its middle height, so it's long and wide under those points. Then try to work the shoulder stuff. So it still allows the belly to hang between the blocks so that it doesn't do the core work for you.
Right.
So you still have to zip up, narrow the hip points, exhale, corset the ribs, and then slide the hands back and then draw the shoulders high enough that the shoulders are at the height of the elbows.
Yeah. So that's really hard. The 90-degree angle, like we said, is when I'm in plank pose, my wrists are under or slightly in front of my shoulders. When I'm in Chaturanga, my wrists are by my lower ribs.
Right. The cue is often fingertips aligned with the nipple.
Okay. Depends on where your nipples are these days.
Exactly.
Is it 20-year-old
But again,
nipple?
it's just showing you that's how far back that the arms have to go. And that's
Yeah.
where demonstrating this as a teacher is really helpful to show that.
Yeah. If I'm working in a vinyasa class, when I'm coming down from plank, the second my shoulder heads start to dip forward, I just bring my torso down. I'm done. Once my shoulder heads are coming forward, that's my boundary, and then I'll find my back bend.
Yeah. And I think that people have to then learn that feeling. So that compare and contrast. Your shoulders are forward, your shoulders are back, your shoulders are forward. And notice what we haven't said is hug your elbows into your rib cage. I'm not a big fan of that because shoulders can be very broad. The narrower you try to get those elbows, if you try to touch your ribs, you're just going to get the forward displacement of the shoulder head. You're going to round and slouch too much. So I'm not a big fan of that. In fact, I encourage wide elbows. The wider you get, the more internally rotated the shoulder gets, and the easier it is to get the head of the arm bone to stay in the socket as you lower down. So you could try that yourself. If you're standing, arms straight out in front of you, externally rotate the arms so the palms are up, and then reach them out so the shoulder's out of the socket, and then draw the head of the arm bone back in the socket. You'll go to a certain point. Now try internally rotating the arms so the palms face out, the thumbs are down, tone your belly, and then draw the head of the arm bone back. They go much further. So when we turn off some of the rotator cuff muscles, it allows the head of the arm bone to get back in the socket, which number one, people can't bring the head of the arm bone back. So this is a cheat. This is a hack. If you try to externally rotate with the shoulder head forward,
You're not doing it.
you're not doing it, and you can't do it. So we have to get the head of the arm bone back in the socket first so that rotator cuff muscles are at the correct length to be able to support and stabilize. You'll feel more powerful because the head of the arm bone's in a good spot.
And so this is what I've understood. That also strengthens the tissue that helps hold your shoulder blade on your back, right? Because when we come into that forward shoulder, they're not aligned on your back in a way that supports your posture. So that sort of exercise actually helps strengthen the tissue that keeps your shoulders where you want them.
If the head of the arm bone is forward, it internally rotates,
Right.
but it's also that the muscles of the upper back that can help draw the head of the arm bone back, or that narrow the shoulder blades. They're so long.
They're extended.
If they're too long, it's not powerful.
Yeah.
When a muscle's too short, it's not powerful. It's always getting to that just right place. And that
Yeah.
happy place is when the head of the arm bone is in the socket,
Cool.
especially for weight bearing.
And we want the hardware to be properly in its place because that's most sustainable for our body.
Right. And so you just have to do that compare and contrast in
Yeah.
non-stressful situations, non-weight bearing situations, and even have students support the weight of their arm as they draw the arm forward in and out of the socket. And just getting this sense of like what the cue head of the arm bone back means.
Right.
We say these cues all the time. We assume that students will just pick it up.
Yeah.
And they won't. So you have to demonstrate, compare and contrast. Not this, but this. Can you draw the head of the arm bone too far back in the socket? Yes. And then you're just jamming it in there. So it's that just right place where things feel pretty quiet.
Yeah. And it feels safe. It feels like a safe place in your body. The other thing is if people can't get a sense of how it feels, go to visualization. Just start with something so that they can start to make the connections. And then you come back into the actual movement.
Chaturanga evolved in order to help people flow through to up dog. How are we going to go from a plank to an up dog? How do we manage that and keep flowing and keep moving? And although it helps you keep moving, your body always tries to think of like, how do I complete this task with the least amount of effort? And so in an alignment class, we say, look, I'd rather take more time and have the alignment be correct. And I'm going to flow in other places because flow is fantastic. Rhythmic movement with the breath is incredibly calming for people. So I understand the importance of that flow. And there's just times to change it up a little bit.
Yeah. Yeah. Okay. We've been in a really nice plank. We've lowered down. We've offered our, I don't know if I want to say bias, our experience that moving through a classic vinyasa with Chaturanga is more, it's easier to harm your body than it is to serve your body. So whatever you do, do it with intention, pay attention, see what's going on in the body, and know where your boundary is. When you hit your boundary, pause. Don't power all the way down.
And people don't know what that is. So then I think what we would very concretely say is if all of your sensation is at the front of the head of the arm bone, this is not a good thing. If we're just getting a lot of sensation circling the shoulder joint, if you go to move your arm and you're getting a lot of clicking, if you're getting a lot of gristly sounds, if you feel snapping, well, these are all hints and clues. This is the body's way of telling you things aren't aligned and the muscles are imbalanced. The shoulder joint is not balanced. And yoga is about finding that nice balance.
Yeah. This is a move that requires, or it asks a lot of the core. It also asks a lot of your upper body. But if you're feeling it in your core and your arm muscles, then that's good. If you're feeling it in your joints or in your low back, then we don't want to be in there. So back up.
Yeah, I would say my main vinyasa for people at first is cat-cow or hold a plank. We're holding a plank, then we're going to downward dog. Now you can do a knee plank, and now you're allowed to lower down and go as slowly as you can, because the slower you go, the harder it is.
Yeah.
So that people who want to build that strength, they don't want to skip the vinyasas, just do it slowly.
Yeah. Yeah. And then you get to see when your body is making modifications to help you go where you think you want to be.
Right. Now you're tired. Hold plank. You're at the top of the plank. You're at the top of the push-up. Hold that instead of doing the vinyasa. And you could go to up dog from the top of the plank. People who have too many limitations, the cat-cow, they get to do their back bend.
Yeah.
They still get to do a back bend. They still get to get some rounding. So they're getting a vinyasa. The point of the vinyasa is to use sagittal plane curve fluctuation to regulate the nervous system, which it does.
Basically, a vinyasa is taking an Etch-a-Sketch and shaking it out so that you can start with fresh.
Right. And cat-cow does that. And the vinyasa is just a more athletic, fitness-based way to do it.
Yeah.
If we go back to the blocks underneath a segment of the rib cage and then the second block under the pelvis, and then you're working the shoulders, then you try to lift up off of one or both blocks, isometric, just a millimeter,
Yeah.
a fraction of an inch. And everyone will sort of cobra into that. So you try to not do that. And then you say it's student's choice, take one of the blocks away. And then they have to think about it. Oof. Okay, I can tell that I really need the one under my pelvis, or my arms feel so weak, I really need the one under my ribs. And so then they get to take one away and try to do the pose the same exact way, set the shoulders. Now that block comes out. Okay. And then try to take both blocks out.
Yeah.
A bolster is a handy stand in a similar way. Try to isometrically lift off the bolster.
Yeah. We tried that yesterday and it offered a lot of humility.
Because we were trying to do it so correctly.
Oh my God.
Yeah.
But it did offer some humility, which is helpful.
I was like, oh, when's the last time I did Chaturanga?
Yeah.
It's
Well, that's the other
been a
thing
minute.
too, Sarah and I were talking about. I don't do Chaturanga too much anymore. What I do is I come down on my shins and then I try to get my shoulders in the right place. I try to have the front body lifting up. I pull my elbows and my palms back. I try to get my torso to come forward through that space. And then I bend until my shoulders are going to get compromised. And then I come down. And I haven't made it to 90 degrees really in a while.
And so we have an alternative for that. So if we were to try this, I would say get to the floor however you need to, and then set up for that bulldog cobra, which is also the military push-up. So the military has done a lot of research
On push-ups.
because they do this as a fitness marker and they need people to have sustainable. They're not hugging the elbows in. They're not doing chaturanga.
Yeah.
They're doing a military style push-up, which is where the fingers point in, the palms are flat, the elbows are high and out to the sides in that kind of goal post. Go to our Cobra episode. We talk about Bulldog Cobra. This is a great way to set up the arms with the body flat on the floor and then push up into a push-up, lower halfway down, and then do some sort of a back bend like a Cobra. Now that does teach you to lower down. It's a way of skipping the problematic parts of Chaturanga, which I respect that tradition. Challenge yourself to have good form within that tradition. The tradition is great. We were super curious just about longevity.
Yeah. Yeah.
And not performing poses. I'm sure if I could do those poses, I would be all about performing those poses. And I've done advanced poses and complex poses in my day for sure. But I always had a cost. There was always a significant price to pay.
And I do think I just need to know what I am feeding Am I taking care of the sustainability of my body? Am I supporting my ego? Maybe my ego needs a little love. And if my ego needs a little love, maybe I want to do some of these poses, but it might cost my physical body a little bit.
Yeah, I have worked with yoga teachers who've come to me with such extensive injuries, and people do say, well, this is not what the practice is about. But you know what? We all take our journey with it. And there's something exhilarating and fulfilling, and achievement feels good.
Yeah.
And I get it. I totally get it. You know what? We're all taking our journey. I've made every mistake in the book.
Yeah.
And I think that makes me a better yoga therapist, because someone comes in, they're like, oh, I've got this pain. I'm like,
I know that one.
I know that one. So we're all joyfully making mistakes together. And I don't know if it's a mistake. We're just doing takes.
Yeah.
And then we'll take another take on our take. So if we were to talk about the culmination of this pose, there's lots of things you can do with plank. You can step 1 foot wide and then the other, and you can lift one leg up. You can elevate the feet in general up on blocks, biasing the weight-bearing ask on the upper body. You can elevate the hands and start to work the legs and the core a little bit more. You can do a side plank.
Yeah, you can do a side plank. I do like side plank.
Side plank is a huge segue.
Yeah.
It has so many therapeutic. It's the same exact pose, just on one arm.
Yeah.
And you're maintaining Tadasana. No twists, no rotations. If you're on the pinky edge of a foot and then you're on one hand, it's a lot trickier because now you're trying to balance as well.
Also, I adjust my hands when I'm coming from plank to side plank. I personally prefer to come to side plank from down dog. I'll take my arm that I'm going to rotate and use as support. I'll turn it externally a little bit so that when I come onto it, I can get the head of the shoulder back, and the shoulder blade feels really structurally sound on my back body. I feel like I've got the bones aligned in a way that they can do more of the work. I want the structure in there helping me out.
Yeah, and side plank is a pose that I use for students who have scoliosis. It's extremely therapeutic to correct a lumbar curve, and then side plank with legs on the chair or pelvis on the chair is incredibly therapeutic for correcting thoracic rotation in scoliosis. So I use this all the time, and often with populations who have no upper body strength and very little core, because scoliosis really, you only have access to about 50% of your core. So there's a lot of building from the ground up very, very gradually towards these poses. And we do plank poses because that is a easier pose relatively to start to work some of the aspects of the core. And then we're back up to standing with the hand on the wall to learn side plank and shoulder blade placement. In side plank, having that arm fairly far away from being underneath the shoulder, closer to the head, allows that scapula to sit and flatten on the back when you're trying to correct a thoracic rotation.
Cool.
The essence is getting that rib cage to pull away from the shoulder joint and not collapse into it. The shoulder joint is so displaced because of the thoracic rotation. The head of the arm bone can be so far forward. So the shoulder blade does not sit flat on the rib cage, and they tend to just collapse the shoulder blade towards the spine as soon as you go to weight bearing on it. So it's useful to even start lying on your side with no weight bearing, and you're just balancing there, but you're not using your arm yet, and just try to lift the ribs independently of using the arms, just finding there's muscles there that can move the rib cage, and then sustaining that lift for up to a minute. Great for people who can't do any versions of side planks. And then we elevate the pelvis with a block and then work on lifting the rib cage, propping up on the elbow, propping up with the straight arm, move that rib cage away from the shoulder joints so they're not collapsing into one another.
That's cool. Yeah.
Other side plank variations would be the feet staggered, top foot generally in front of the bottom foot because the pelvis tends to roll open towards the ceiling too much.
I think there's a lot of good party tricks too. Mm-hmm. You can bring the top leg into tree pose. You can lift it up. What's really fun is if you can grab it with your top two first fingers and you lift the leg up and then you bring it forward and plant it down for a high lunge. That's fun.
That's really fun.
The other thing that side plank does almost easier to me than regular plank is in side plank, it's pretty clear to me when I have to understand to lift the side body away from the earth to get that sense of the side body moving up away from gravity. That's exactly what I want to do in a regular plank, but it's so much easier for me to understand and feel my body in a side plank.
And to rainbow, not for scoliosis populations, but other populations, to rainbow between the two, to kind of sag down. I use the word like a hammock. So I can kind of imagine the spine hammocking down and then rainbow the spine so it's arcing up, and then find that place in the middle. And then when you're in a regular plank, I use that same verbiage of the hammock because people's low back tends to hammock. You want to float that up. And so now it's just a regular bed. It's not a hammock. It's not sagging down in the middle. That's literally what the abdominal muscles do. That's what their job is, to take that hammock shape, that lowest point, and lift it. And they can start to go, okay, oh, and I'm feeling that. Oh, I can imagine the muscles, and they start here, end there, and then they pull towards the middle, and then that lifts up, and I'm not a hammock anymore.
That's so nice.
Counter poses?
Well, it was funny because the first counter pose I'm going to say is child's pose. When Sarah and I were doing them yesterday, we came to child's pose right away. So I'm guessing that's a counter pose.
Right.
Yeah.
So the pecs absolutely work, stretching the chest afterwards. I like to lie prone, take the arm out to the side in a T.
Key of shoulder opener kind of thing?
Yes. And then roll towards that extended arm. And you really have a population here quickly where people either like that straight arm or they like that bent arm.
Yeah.
And definitely write in and let us know what you've observed in terms of populations, who prefers what.
Do you like it out 90 degrees from the torso? I like it a little bit above that.
I've played with it a little higher, a little lower.
So if my arm is extended straight, and this is a great cue for yogis, I like to have my thumb in line with my third eye. Because that's where I want. I want in line with my third eye.
The fibers of the pec run in many directions. They're kind of like a starburst out from the chest. So having that arm higher is just getting into more of those fibers. I just play with it. I think every shoulder needs something a little different. It's its whole own pose about when you lie on a joint and how much you're sinking into it, compressing it, letting the head of the arm bone go forward. I try to keep the head of the arm bone off the floor, press the palm down, so that we're activating the muscle as we stretch it. Yeah. Flexi people love to crank into this pose so deep. So if you love that variation, you have to, I would say, just
keep
moderate.
your eye on it.
Yeah. But you could do a doorway stretch. You could just interlace hands behind you or use a strap, anything to open the chest afterwards. And this is why we do up dog after chaturanga or after plank, is because then it stretches that chest open. It opens the front body.
It was funny because I was even thinking like a bridge or a supported bridge might be really lovely after this. Because if we're doing it correctly, we're getting the whole front body, we're getting the whole core to really activate and support ourselves. And so when we can go into a posture that is doing the opposite.
Right. And say plank is the focus of your class. Well, then that's a great time to do like Viparita Dandasana in a supported way, because now the core has been activated, the hip flexors have released a bit, and it's a nice time to do a back bend that's supported and passive, and they'll feel like, oh, it's not going into my back. I can stretch my legs out straight across those bolsters and maybe even elevate the feet on blocks, and I feel really good in my back.
Cool.
And then just point that out to students, like, notice if your low back feels a lot more comfortable.
Okay, I'm spacing out on my Sanskrit.
Viparita Dandasana, say if you were to do it over a bolster, you just have, it's like bridge pose, but then you just slide your legs out straight onto a second bolster or blocks.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah. There's several ways to do Viparita Dandasana. That's just one of them.
Okay.
Yeah. There's chair variations. There's all sorts of deeper ways to do that pose, and even through wheel. We should do a whole episode on that. It's not going to be our foundational series though.
Yeah. No,
it
won't be.
Yeah, our advanced series.
Beyond that. So, I don't know what we haven't covered on this pose, although I'm sure you guys know what we haven't covered.
Oh, I know what we haven't covered. A nice counter pose to plank pose is reverse plank. Oh. So good. So good. People are so tight.
Yeah, that's a really good pose. And that's also a pose that you can do in a way that doesn't serve you too.
The head of the arm bones will rocket forward.
Yeah.
Yeah, start on your butt, have your legs or hands behind you, roll the shoulders up towards the ears, then back, and then slightly down.
Fingertips are pointing towards your feet or a little bit out?
I start out. I start with that external rotation. I think the more they roll in, and then
the trickier it is to keep the head of the shoulders back.
Right. And then just little micro unlock those elbows. Not allowed to lock the elbows out. That's the hardest part. If you can keep the head of the arm bone back, make sure your elbows are soft. And then lifting the butt up and only lifting as high as you can. Stop before the head of the arm bone lifts. Chest has to lift. Belly should not distend. I like doing it with the knees bent.
Yeah.
It's like a bridge on straight arms, essentially. But the full pose is with the legs straight.
Yeah.
Which you might be able to do after a good class focusing on plank.
That's cool.
Yeah. I'd sprinkle the reverse planks in throughout the class. Start with it as kind of a soft warm-up, like a cat-cow. Your butt's on the floor and your arms are maybe more out to the side instead of directly behind you and wide.
Yeah.
To accommodate carrying angle, and then just get that whole spine moving. And then you're just teaching head of the arm bone forward, head of the arm bone back. Yeah.
Yeah.
Because the goal is like, great, you can do pose, but it's the little mini lessons you're learning in between that really make it meaningful. If students come out of there going, I actually know what head of the arm bone back means now, even if they would have to come back to plank, which they will over the next decades of their practice, they're going to keep coming back to plank to do it well. But now they at least have clarity on head of the arm bone back. That's a class well taught.
That is a class well taught. It reminds me of so many other things where I was thinking, oh, this is going to be great. I'm going to go in, I'll transform. When I come out and I'm like, I got a new vocab word. That's as far as I got.
That's great though.
Yeah.
One insight per class, one experience of a pose where you're like, it's never really quite felt that way before is a victory.
Yeah.
And if I go through a class, I'm like, I've done every single thing in that. It just felt the same as it ever does. I want to feel something different every time. That's what floats my boat, not consistency. It's anomaly, nuance, discovery, curiosity.
Yeah, and it's actually really fun because yoga offers the perfect playground for that. But anyway, this has been so great. It always is so great. I learned so much.
Me too.
And it's really fun because one of the things I love about yoga and this practice, and one of the things I love about this podcast, is no matter where we are in our experience, there is still the opportunity to discover something anew, to feel something different in our body, to create more sustainability, and to really allow what we do to serve our ability to show up and participate in life and enjoy it.
Excellent. Love you, Jane. See you soon.
I love you too. Bye, Sarah.
Bye,
you
Jane.
guys.